over 90 years, we've been crash testing our cars in the tireless pursuit of automotive safety. At Volvo, safety's been first since 1927. We've saved millions of lives with the invention of the three-point seatbelt in 1959. At Volvo, we've made driving safer for you and them. Visit safety.findlayvolvo.com to learn more.
So they say if you give a man a gun, he'll rob a bank. But if you give a man a bank, he'll rob everybody. The good news for you is Private Money Club runs solely on peer-to-peer relationships, which means no banks allowed. So finally, there's a community for real estate entrepreneurs where it is truly a win-win solution. This community is a place where you can connect with other lenders and other borrowers, and the end result's massive growth for you. You get to build your real estate empire, and you get to do it solving other people's problems. So if that sounds like a place you want to be, well then join us. Go to privatemoneyclub.com/Kelly. And if you want $500 off, just add the code Kelly500 and I'll knock $500 off the Premier membership. We'll see you on the inside.
Welcome to the Kelly Cardenas podcast, where attitude is everything. On today's show, we are going to beat the algorithm. We're going to be talking about how to beat the algorithm in all aspects of life, not just only the digital and the social. And we hear about this all the time. The algorithm is breaking me down. It's putting me in a place where my content's not getting out there. But I found the man who broke the algorithm, who didn't look at the way in which that I posted or the time that I was or the material that I did, but he focuses on the relationships that he has, and one main relationship, which is with his Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. And he doesn't have to worry about the algorithm because all the stuff is taken care of. This is the actual real Superman. This is the quickest turnaround of 2 episodes that we've ever done. This man had 33 surgeries before he was 11 years old. When he had his 34th surgery, they took him into the hospital at 11 years old. They amputated his leg without telling him. He woke up and his leg was gone. But as opposed to looking at his circumstances, guess what he did? He chose to listen to his grandmama, who told him that he was a superhero, who told him he was going to have an impact on this world, who told him he was going to impact millions and that his mess was going to become his message and that he was special because of the things that he had. It didn't give him a disability. And so now he is one of the top motivational speakers in the entire world, listened to by 1.4 million people on YouTube, with more views than almost every single motivational speaker on the planet. So please welcome Mr. James Dixon, the real Superman.
My friend, my brother, my guy, Dr. Bounty. I mean, man, it's so awesome to see you, Kelly. Man, you're phenomenal. The last time I was on here with you, I was just sharing my story. I was on a stage with you. a week later, I had a cover to a book after being around you. There is something about proximity, but proximity around you. You're a mentor, you're a coach, you're vibrant, and because of who you are, man, you changed the atmosphere, and I got to thank you. It doesn't happen without you, and I'm thankful for you.
Well, I'd like to be able to take all that credit, but I can't take all the credit. It's incredible because we had this conversation and people talk about proximity, and this is what I want to talk about first. People talk about proximity, but then there's and we've even had this happen. We've had proximity to people that have had proximity to you, that have asked you questions and then not followed through on it. So let's talk about the follow through on proximity and how that will, by taking action around that proximity, makes a difference.
Wow. Let me tell you something. When we start talking, I said to you when I first saw you, I said, brother, we want to write. Just when we're talking, the energy, the way you communicate, your intellect, your experience, I knew immediately that there was more that I could glean from you than way I could give to you, because you carry so much with you and you're so giving. And as we talked, I was like, man, we got to write a book together, right? Because if what I'm gleaning from you and the way that I'm trying to impact the world, I know I can't do it alone. And when we got on stage, we started to talk and you asked the question, I was in the hot seat, right? So proximity is there. Before we get started, before I mention anything, I said, the one thing I want to do is write with you. And you shook my hand on it. And I was like, that's it. I was done. Game over. Get me out of the seat. My leg is numb anyway. I'm ready to go. But then what happened is the more that we were there, and I said, well, you said, do you have a lawyer? You said, no. And then you pointed in the crowd, said, him. And next thing you know, that guy's like, yep, I'll do it for free. Next thing you know, you're like, and do you have this? And another person says, yep, I'll do that. And I'll step in your life for free. But had I not come prepared, had I not been keeping a diary, had I not been writing long before I ever got there, I wouldn't have been able to take advantage of proximity. What good is it for you to walk in saying, I've been waiting a whole life to do this, and someone says, let's do it, and you go, well, I'm not quite ready. Give me another moment, another year, another. You have to be ready when the opportunity comes. And when it comes, you got to rush in that door, realizing that, man, God has given me this opportunity. I'm about to rip the hinges off so that I and everyone who's attached to me purely can come through at the same time.
So a thing that my pop has always been on me, and especially this morning, I got to spend some time with him at the beach, and he was huge on me that God is right on time. He's never late. He's seldom early, but he's always right on time, and that he's always got it, and he's working at a pace and at a level that we have no idea about. And we can try and do all these things, but when we let him, and can you talk about letting? Because this experience and being able to watch you in these last couple of weeks it's been so inspiring to me, because it wasn't James's might. It wasn't James's, hey, I'm going to do all these things. No, James was preparing, but then the opportunity posed itself. And when preparation and opportunity meet, it's magic. But can you talk to me about the things that have happened in these past couple of weeks since Secret Knock? And this is in real time. That's why we wanted to have this podcast today, is because, like, you said, hey, Kelly, I want to write a book with you on the podcast. Then you said it on stage.
That's right.
We talked about it. You called me and you were like, hey, guess who I'm talking to about writing my book? Can you talk to him about this and how massive this is?
Being there in the audience, the moment I stepped off stage, a family walks up to me, the real power family. That's these guys are there. They're like, James, hey, you changed my life. And I was like, how? The wife said, I didn't know what I wanted to do until I heard you talk, and your passion, and it ignited me. And by the way, Mark Victor Hansen just did a book with us, and we called him and told him about you. I said, really? He said, yeah, he wants to know when you're available. And they had him on the phone, and they were like, hey, to get you started, we wrote a check for $2,000, by the way, to get going so you can go ahead and start on this thing. They had never read a page. They had never done any of those things. You see, the fact that they heard what I stated on stage connected me with, and then I'm talking to Mark Victor Hansen. And then this is from the 23rd of March. By the 4th of April, they'd taken a photo of mine and said, hey, what do you think about this? And I was like, found. You may have lost a leg, but you found your purpose. And I was like, where'd you get that title from? They said, you said it on stage when I was talking to you. When you interviewed me, one of the comments I made is like, I may have lost a leg, but I found my purpose. That's exactly. So I didn't come up with it. They were just taking it off of the verbiage that I stated with you. So we put in the atmosphere. But when we put in the atmosphere, you have to be ready. You have to be available. You have to be cognizant, and you have to be hungry. So I want the opportunity. But with the opportunity came expense. But with the expense came a down payment, because people invest in causes. They invest in passion. They invest in purity. And what you and I were expressing, what we're talking about, is changing lives. People buy into that.
So James, tell me about the difference between trying and letting. This was a huge thing for me, because whenever I'm trying something, whenever I'm pushing it, it has a tendency to elude me. When I allow it to happen, when I let it happen, it changes everything. Tell me the difference between trying and letting in your life.
Okay. This is where we have, when I was trying, I wanted to make impact. I wanted to be someplace. But when you let it happen organically, say, God, trust you, and God will bring people to you. The interview with you, the chemistry and the way we communicated, it allowed my story to get out. It allowed people to connect with it. It's allowed us to build a bond. And just so happened, when you gave me a moment, it was only going to be a 1 minute or 2 minutes. So just being there, if I tried to force my way in, I wouldn't have been able to. If I had tried to buy my way in, I couldn't have been able to. But when I let God, a moment opened up, and it went from me standing upstairs waiting to say 1 or 2 words, right? And saying, hi, here I am, to I'm standing on stage, interview style with you, on stage with giants. And to be able to be there and to say, man, I'm just going to let God. I didn't have a canned speech. I didn't have canned words. So it wasn't trying to impress anyone. It wasn't trying to get a word out. It was just letting God use the authentic version of you. And that works. Whenever I tried to force it, whenever I tried to manipulate it, whenever I try to position myself, I always end up out of position because I'm trying to be God by myself. But when I let it happen, he brings in relationships, he brings in the finances, he brings in the connections, and he brings in the accountability through people that can help you because iron can't sharpen itself. It must have another iron. And so you end up meeting people that, hey, here's what you do. And you have to be teachable. You have to be willing, and you can't try. You got to let.
So let me ask you this, because I have a specific story that really, really inspired me about you and trying and letting. And this was when you tried to rap when you were in school. Can you tell that story about you trying to force your rap career on all of the people that you were going to school with?
Man, let me tell you what. I feel like I'm the most undiscovered talent of all time. You hear me? Man, I was like, man, I'm going to be the greatest rapper. And so I used to watch BET, MTV, and I would practice walking. And now I'm an amputee, and so I already have a natural limp. But I used to add to it because I wanted to have that bounce. And so I remember taking my hands and I'd take it from one side to the other side. And in my head, it's the greatest walk of all time. You know what I mean? And then I was like, man, we need rap names. And so I was like, man, my nickname, what's my rap name? I'm going to be MC Troy D. And I'm like, there we go. That's going to be killer. It's going to strike fear in Rakim. All these guys are going to know me by name. I'm going to battle LL. But anyway, we decided, and I was like, man, I'm going to take some raps. And I got up and the teacher had given an assignment. And she was like, Troy, you want to make a rap of the English assignment? I said, absolutely. So I'm gonna do an exclusive. I'm gonna do a little bit of my rap. Please do not. This is copywritten. Don't steal it. I don't want to see it in a remix over there. Maddox leading this song one day. So it is. I was like, in this story, Merlin plays the matchmaker. Now, others a good king, but his son will be greater. The king is like, thanks, and I owe you one. Merlin says we're even if I can read your firstborn. Anyway, the story goes on. And it's almost time for this kid to be born. But that's how the rap went. And the teacher was like, I love it, Troy. It's the best ever. You took Sir Hector and you took that story. And I was like, I've made it. That's it. I'm ready. Put me on tour. I even got 2 dancers. I got dancers. We went to the mall. And remember gold by the inch? You can get those. We got some of them fake ones. I even had the thing. Man, we had starter jackets. We put our names on it because we were going big time. And then the black kids heard it.
Hold on. Your dancers were white kids? Your dancers were white kids?
My whole crew. And one of them was 6'10", and the other one was short. Yeah, but we had practiced the thing, man. We were kind of hammerish and stuff. And now imagine there's no beat to it or anything. They just dancing to me, just saying stuff. But it looks good in our head. I'm telling you, if it ever looked like we thought it did, oh man, because when we would walk the halls in them jackets, we were the baddest group. We were famous,
So James, help me with this, because as we were talking about it, you told me this story in San Diego. When you were in that place, when the white teacher told you, James, you made it. This is jamming. Then you grabbed your 2 white friends, And then you got around people, you got around your black friends, and your black friends were like, "This ain't it, man. This is not
Man,
it."
like they ate me alive. Man, they're like, this is trash. This is garbage. This like, sir, and they're like, oh man, I thought that was like NWA ready. You know what I'm saying? Because in my head, I had the NWA vibe, but even though I was doing nursery rhymes and I
how
was
how
more
James, how can you relate that though to, because I think about it in business, because there's a lot of times where I think I'm the man, or I jump out to something and I think that when I'm in my bubble and I've got people around me who are hyping me, right? They're not telling me the truth, they're just hyping me. And then I get out and I realize that the hype isn't what I need. It's support and encouragement, yes, but it's not the hype. Can you talk about the difference between hype
man.
and truth?
So when we watch people and you see them elevate in business and they have a specific skill set, and then they say, hey, I'm going to take these talents and I'm going to try to take them and transfer them onto social media. And so you have the specific talent, people have told you you're great, but then you go into social media, and because we have more following than someone else, we think that there's success, right? And you'll see some other people like, why are they more known in that arena than us, whether it be YouTube or whatever? And if people stay around us and say, you've got the right visual, you have the right number of, you have the right camera, you have the right equipment, you have the right microphone. But unless we find out, get out of the circle of people telling you have all the rights, and somebody tell you, what am I doing wrong? What am I doing not to get that message out? Because we have the best of voice, best of talents, and all those things. We got to get around people who will provoke us and tell us that there's more to it than just those things. And it's not your talent. It's about the connection and utilizing the right algorithms and the right hashtags. It's the right connections and having the right people shout you out. And then you have to stay hungry enough that you don't get satisfied with the fact that you have a certain small group or a group. Sometimes yes men can make you get a no.
Well, it's amazing because when we talk about that algorithm part, everyone's, especially right now, everyone's so mad. Number one, for all the people out there that are mad that somebody else got your blue check, then go take that to your mama. That's what you need to do. Take it to your mama, because she ain't going to care about it at all. But it's so funny because those are the kind of things where people are like, oh man, the algorithm's getting me. The algorithm's getting me. But we were talking yesterday. I believe it was yesterday. And I said something to you that at the time you didn't understand, but by later in the evening, then it hit. But it didn't have to do with you posting at the right time, with you doing the exact right thing. It just happened to be the fact of you just being James. Can you tell me yesterday and tell the story about how you cracked the code of the algorithm?
Listen, I was sitting there. In fact, when you and I were talking, I had you on speaker. And there was a guy that I was talking to in front of me, and I didn't tell you I was on speaker, but I was like, man, this thing here is just a great guy. I got to like this. So I tell him this guy, Brian, about you. And while I'm talking to you, I'm actually calling real time because people will not believe this if I don't do this. Watch this. Hey, Brian, make something of yourself. No, listen, I got a quick something for you. Yesterday, I'm talking with Kelly Cardenas. I'm on the best podcast that I've ever been on right now. We're talking, and I wanted to get you an honest response out of you. When I put him on speaker in front of you yesterday, what is it that he said that gave you chills when he said it?
That you were going to have a media company.
He said you will have a media company. Now, and that was what, 5 p.m. And what did I tell you about the call that happened to me? As soon as I left you at 10 at night, 11 at night?
Yeah, you called me at, what was it, a little after 7 a.m. this morning, and you said that, guess what?
It happened. I got a call. I got the invite. Brian, I got to go, but I needed you. People wouldn't believe it if I didn't have this real time. I'll update you later, my friend.
It is amazing. It is amazing.
Thank you, brother. I'll talk to you. Listen, I hung up on him. I know he'll forgive me. Like, I got to get this out to you. You said, man, listen, you're going to do it. And I'm like, man, I never even thought about that, you know? And on my, now, 4 hours later, at the end of filming, I get a phone call. And the phone call is like, hey, we want to do this with you. And how about you doing this and put these shows on? And I'm like, and he said, it'll be a media. And I was like, proximity and letting. And then there are other people who can speak in your life. Kelly, you're not just a coach. No, man. God uses you in mighty ways. You see things before other people do. That your premonitions, all those things that are God given to you, that's vision. But you don't have vision just for you. Your vision is for others. And being able to see for other people is a great call. For much is given, much is required. And you, my friend, have been given much. And so much is required. And when you spoke that, I sit there and the guy goes, I've got chill bumps, right? And then when I say, hey, I know this is going to sound crazy. It's going to seem like I made this up. It's going to sound like it's an infomercial. Like, I went there and it changed my life. But no. You know, for less than 70 cents a day, you can buy a leg. No, it was actually, you know, you spoke it and these things are happening. And so when we talked about that real time, book comes into play. There are relationships and offers and opportunities and income. And there are so many different things that have taken place. It was in Atlanta, and man, here I am with a sold out group, and people are buying book. The book hadn't even finished being edited. I mean, man, this is amazing. Cracking the code and just listening to people and being willing to be open for that.
Well, James, I think one of the cool things is watching you contribute to people without looking for anything in return. And I experienced this from you. And when we talk about trying and letting, I want to tell you about an experience now. I have put my focus on YouTube. So if you're watching us on YouTube right now and you're not subscribed, smash the button. It's the thing that you need to do. But I started to say like, oh, I'm going to focus on that. I'm going to focus on that. I'm going to focus on that. And I was moving this, moving that. And then I just picked up my phone yesterday. Well, I picked it up the night before, but yesterday I picked it up and my YouTube channel had changed. And it wasn't because of what I did. It was because of one of my friends just saying, I'll help out. And you didn't call me and say, I did this and I did that. Why is it so important to speak life into other people and help other people to be able to accomplish what they need to, as opposed to just focusing on yourself?
Let me tell you something that is absolutely a fact of life. When you sit there and you say, listen, I got groceries and I brought it home. This is for me. And then you realize that you don't have a stove and the friend of yours does. And your unwillingness to share that means that neither one of you are able to get something. It won't be right, it won't be adequate. But when you begin to share, you both have your needs met, and both of your talents, which aren't in competition, can complement one another. Kelly, you bring so much to the table. And what I found is that my giving nature, when I used to misdirect it, I used to feel used or betrayed or hurt, but I couldn't stop it. Givers give. But when you get maturity and you get discernment, you learn where you can give. And so all I began to do is say, hey, I'm going to begin sharing your stuff because the content is phenomenal. And I would go back over and I look down the timeline and I look for friends. And then I look for friends of your friends, because if someone is friends with you, then they're a friend to me. And I was like, hey, guys, let's do this together. We support one another. If we share that, we get that energy going where we're pushing one another, great things happen. And so sometimes I've noticed that people will miss when something happens. If I talk about, I'm going to be on this. So I'll circle back and I'll grab it like a good leg and put that thing on again and post that thing and saying, go check this out. Kelly's got great content. He's got great stuff. And when you call me, you're like, hey, we're up to 1,500 something above what it was the day before or whatever. And I never got the chance to even go back on there. But I do know that you have great content and you have even greater character. And as a result of that, anytime that we share it and more that we share it, more people will discover and be like, hey, I want it. I'm going to connect with it. And the more of us that share it, if you're watching right now, like, share, comment, subscribe, I promise you, you're not only doing a favor to me, but you're going to do a favor to the person on the other side that gets this information.
So James, what about the person out there is just saying, you know what, I've given and I've given and I've given and I just keep getting burned. So James, you keep telling me about giving, but I don't have anything else to give. And I hear about this. So now I just need to take care of me. I just need to lock into me. I need to focus on me. What do you say to that person?
Man, this is a great one. I just dealt with this. Someone said, I had $200,000 last year and I started putting money into this and they were supposed to give me this and they were supposed to. And I was like, because you were trying to buy something, you see? And now when you purchased something, you did not invest. You see, there's a difference between the two. And so if I want something in return, man, I have to be willing to invest. I have to bring value. I have to look for win-win relationships. I have to look at it long-term, that sometimes you may not get it now, but being delayed does not mean you've been denied. Being distracted by the idea that it was supposed to be immediate. When I began to write the book, it was just random. I didn't have a destination. And one day it was just something that we were talking about doing. And then all of a sudden, I was like, man, we started, we might as well finish it, right? And the next thing I know, I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, I can't believe we actually just got this finished and I'm here. And the moment is there. What you're working on, you can give it all away. You can feel like you've been burned up. But sometimes you've got to burn up what you had in order to get new growth. Because the first layer that you had may have been corrupted. The first layer that you had wasn't sufficient. And so we got to pull it up and do it the right way. You take shortcuts. I'm going to buy this. I'm going to pay this person. They're going to put me on stage. This person is going to let me talk. This is going to happen. I'm going to get this. All of these things that we try to manipulate, manipulation will always leave you without validation. But when you're authentic and you do this thing through relationships and you're building, not only do you feel a sense of earning it, you don't feel that sense of imposter syndrome, that I'm faking it, that I didn't earn it. Because when you don't feel that you've earned it, people can tell the difference between authentic communication and someone trying to convince themselves that they're worthy of being up in front of you.
Well, going right on that line of authentic communication, James, we're going to go to a quick commercial break. But what I want you to think about, because I want you to answer this when we come back, is a lot of times when people start communicating authentically, they get so focused that they can't lighten up enough to be able to deliver a message. And their vibe is in a place where they're like, you know what? I got this lesson for you, and you need this lesson. And when I say that, I'm not making an accusation of the world. I'm calling myself out. Because there's been times where I'm like, you know what? If you just do this, then you'll have a good time. And everyone's like, you don't look like you're having a good time. And I'm like, well, if this happens, and what I realized in it was that when I take myself so seriously, then other people have the tendency not to be attracted to that vibe. And you are a master at this. And we're going to talk about it after the quick commercial break. But I want you to help us to understand how you can lighten up about your circumstances and scenarios, because for those of you who haven't listened to the first episode, you need to go back and listen to it. But James is an amputee, 33 surgeries before he's 11 years old, and he is sending me jokes almost on the daily about some of the things. So think about, during the commercial break, how people can lighten up about their situation to create a vibe that will actually attract people.
The way I see it is you've got two choices. You can either keep pretending like nothing bad's ever gonna happen to you, and then when it does, you're saying, uh-oh, or you can get ahead of what's coming so that when it does, not if, you're ready for it. And you're sitting pretty, sipping on Mai Tais next to the pool, working on that Caribbean suntan, because you got it covered. So folks, it's time for you to learn the truth about money. It's time for you to take back control of your money so that you are ready for what's about to happen. By doing that, you're setting yourself up for absolute success. No matter what comes your way, you're ready for it. And that's what I want for you, and I want to help you with that. So go to chrisnaugle.com and sign up for the Wealth Webinar. We do them every Wednesday at 1 p.m., and you need to be there because it's time to get prepared.
So help me on this, James, because probably one of the most important things is not so much the message itself, not the content, but the vibe in which you deliver it with. And you have become a master at this. And the reason why I say this is because I texted you the other day and I was trying to be serious. I was like, James, what can I pray for you today? This was my response from my friend and brother, James Dixon, the amputee who speaks to amputees all over the world, the Under Armour model, now the new soon-to-be best-selling author with Mark Victor Hansen, who sold over 500,000 copies of his book, or I can't remember exactly the number on it. But this was his response to me. Number one motivational speaker in the world. He said, my leg fell asleep. At first, now I know you, so I knew how to respond, but a lot of times, again, people take themselves so seriously, their message so seriously, that they don't lighten up about it. Can you talk to people about falling in love with that circumstance to create a completely different vibe?
Come on, this is great. I can remember when I was trying to say something motivational, say something inspirational, get people fired up. So I ended up saying some stuff that didn't even make sense. I was like, I wake up at 2 a.m., I start eating bologna sandwiches. I don't care if I got bologna sandwiches. I eat your leg, whatever you got to do to, and you start making no sense. And it is because your desire for acceptance and validation is there rather than just being authentic and flowing from who you are authentically. Like, I had no idea that if I just relax, be me, whatever I'm feeling in that moment, I begin to share that and I funnel it through. How do I communicate what I'm going through to others so that it hits them where they are? And so what I did was I worked on things that are important. I work out all the time. That's great therapy for me. But one of the things that you didn't know is I work on flexibility a lot. It's important to stretch every day. One of the things that I did, I set a new world record last week. Were you aware of this, Kelly, or no?
No.
So anyway, I saw that they were having a competition on flexibility. And I had all my life, I used to be stuck. I lifted all that stuff. I couldn't reach around. And then so I started stretching. And I learned one thing with dedication and hard work. And I want everyone to understand this. You have to put in hard work to do this. So I started stretching. I said, wonder if I could ever put my leg behind my head. And I started working on it. And all of a sudden, in an instant, I'm just saying, hard work and dedication is all it takes. Now, most people can't do that, but I've been able to do that. And I'm telling you, take yourself less serious, but take your purpose, because living on the idea of trying to get validated doesn't come. But living authentically through you creates a vibe. And that authentic you that has purpose and finds joy draws people. If all you have is pain, you can get our empathy, sympathy. But when you have something that is passionate, something that's purposeful, something that's wonderful, you'll get people that follow, that love you, that cheer for you, that want to be around you.
Well, I think it's amazing too, James, because there's a lot of times where people will assume, like they see a James Dixon, they hear you, and they assume that everything's perfect. Everything's just going right for James. Now, I could tell you this, in the last 3 weeks, it's been going right for James. It has been going right for James. But people assume, or they think that they almost see these things in you, and your grandmother saw Superman in you when you didn't see it in yourself. But there was also an experience at Secret Knock where a person came up and saw something in you that wasn't actually true, and it was at the bar, and both of us had a good laugh at it. Can you tell them this story? Because this was probably, I mean, it was probably one of my highlights of Secret. There was so many highlights of Secret Knock, but this was one of my favorite times at Secret Knock.
Wait a minute, are you talking about where the guy thought I was Isaac? Kelly had just shown a video clip where it was a wonderful actor, Isaac. Man, he's a big guy too. Man, he's even bigger than me, and we look nothing alike. And he's sitting by me, and we look nothing alike. Outside of the fact that we're both bald, but I was wearing a baseball cap anyway, I think. And anyway, in anger management, he has the line where he walks up to an assembly, says, "Calm down," whatever. And you had just said something about people identifying people, whatever. And I go in the back, and the guy is like, "Hey, I loved you in that movie. That was great." And I was like, "Which one?" Because he's like, "Yeah, you were a great scene in that scene. You were, oh man." I was like, I grabbed Isaac, who was walking by, and I said, "What about him?" He said, "I loved him in Green Mile." And I was like, "That's a totally different black guy too." That's the guy. That's it. We look nothing alike. You end up saying something about it on stage, and the same guy is so tuned up, he ends up saying it again. He never did figure out that I wasn't that guy. You know, he wouldn't pay attention no matter what you said. So some people, even if you point them in the right direction, it's like, "Here, go this way with your business." Point it to them. They will still miss it and say, "You didn't teach me anything. I've invested money into coaching. I did all these things. I came to Mastermind. I came to Hideout." You can point them all in the right direction, identify it, and they can misidentify it because they choose not to be attentive.
So what's the difference there? I mean, what's the difference between a person catching it? Like, say you catching fire. I've been to conventions where one person catches fire and they hear something and then they move on it and it works out. And I have others that go and they say, "I didn't get anything from it." How can we prepare ourselves for the environments? Because it seems like with you, James, it seems like you're prepared. And I don't understand this. This is very uncanny to me. It seems like you're prepared for whatever situation arises. Mark Victor Hansen called you the other day. Bang, I'm talking about a book. We won't talk about the movie star, but the movie star is really, 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 really big that you were talking about last night. Super big. He happens to be on social media and doing some of this stuff that for the very first time, if you guys catch my drift.
Yeah. That's very much.
So, but you seem to be this almost chameleon. You don't just connect with amputees. And that's what I loved, because when we did our first episode, we were talking about it. And your message is not just to a person who has lost a limb, but how do you stay prepared no matter what situation comes to be able to bless people the way that you do?
Well, brother, I feel like there's runway. The difference between those of us that can move from one level to the next is runway. We're both grounded, but in order to get off, you have to have a runway. You have to be able to have enough room to take off running, to catch flight. And a lot of people will be like, "Listen, that's not enough room. What they're saying is impossible." And once we believe it's not possible, once we believe it's easy for them to say because it came easy. For when we talk about what things can go wrong and right, in the midst of everything going right, bad things can happen. But there's a difference in it when you realize, man, I see all the favor, see all the blessing. Catching fire, even when bad things happen, you become optimistic because you look at the balance. Everything is going great. No, instead of allowing this one little aspect, this one little thing get in the way, you channel it this way. Let me get specific. I can recall one time where finances got bad in my life. And most people will act like, "I've been blessed, I've done it," but I gambled on myself. I said, "Man, I got to do such and such, and so I'll pay my car note later." And then I said, "Well, wait, I got to do this. I'll pay that later." And then one day I walked outside and I'm on the phone, like, "Yeah, I'm on my," oh, they done stole my car. All these jokers. I didn't know who it was. Before I called police, it hit me internally. I better call the bank. And so I had to call. And so now, as sweet as I am with you right now, I had to go hood on them. "Did y'all take my car?" Boy, y'all, woof. And they were like, I thought if I threatened them, they'd be like, "Okay, we'll turn around and come back." But no, it didn't work like that. And so anyway, we got there and I couldn't tell them a sad story. I couldn't come up with a lie. I just didn't. I was like, "Here's where I am. I put this off and I got this." And it just as they were talking to me, and this is about catching fire. Even as things can go, you had good things go happen, bad things can happen, but you keep your focus on it. And this is how you lead to a runway. While I was talking about, man, I just had this happen and I put it off. I don't know what to do. Tell me how much it is. The bank president happens to be walking in because we're after 5 o'clock and they're going to be closing. He looks in, he sees me and goes, "Hey, you're the guy to help my brother when he lost his leg." And I was like, "I did." He said, 3 years ago, he passed away, but you were there for him. And what are you doing here? Now, they repossessed my car and my pride. I wouldn't be, no, man, I'm doing good, cuz, Now, I just came to see what she was up to. And, or I could have played up, that woman stole my car. Can you believe that? Man, give me some dad, bro. I could have, but I didn't. I didn't even lean on that. I was like, listen, I got behind. And he said, take your keys, go home. You hear? You see, you can be doing the right things. Bad things can happen. But sometimes the weight of who you are and the weight of your name, the value of your name can elevate you. There's a reason why people connect with you, Kelly, is because your name is better than a check is. The relationship is more valuable than revenue. And people who catch fire understand that building relationships will give you runway. And it's not so that you manipulate and you use people to get to the next person. You don't use people as middlemen, but you get to people. And together you walk hand in hand to the next level. They help you elevate. Whether you realize or not, most people want to see you win. One of the things that I love about you in your post, you say, I love it when my friends win. And it's every friend. You put him, man, guy was on the cover of a magazine in New York, saw himself, and you were like, my friend won. You see what I mean? You could have been posting about your own stuff. You didn't want to dilute your message, that you had things coming on, but you didn't. You stopped and you simply said, I love it when my friends win, and posted. I'd be like, man, I hit like on that. I'm going to share that later. That's awesome. Right? I don't even know the guy, but it was like, man, but I know the spirit. When you can be happy for others and celebrate them, then people automatically will be that for you. The atmosphere you want, you have to also, he that has a friend must first show himself friendly. You create a catch fire moments constantly. We're always here. And so I have a wick. I could be feeling burnout, but you can light that thing again. You can get going again, but you got to stop being around negative people. You got to get out of negative mindsets. You can't go back over what you used to be. I failed in the past, Kelly. I paid money in the past. I've come to seminars. I came to the knock. It didn't do for me what it did for him. But then you find out that you sat by yourself. You didn't communicate with people. You didn't exchange cards. You didn't open yourself up. You sit in the back. You were hung around the same people you're always around instead of opening up new relationships. You see? You want runway? Sometimes you got to be the one running.
How do we, though, James, know when to cut someone off or when we need to put a hand out to them? Because I've learned this in the past where, people say this a lot, where they're like, oh, you just need to cut people out of your life. And if they're negative, they're toxic. And I'm like, but what if you were, how many times have you been toxic and someone didn't give up on you? But then there's the paradigm of like, when do you know? Like, how do you know when to cut someone out and when it's your time to minister to them?
Wow. This is going to be messed up. Sorry. I have a cousin that grew up with me. We shared the same birthday. And I love him, but he got caught up on drugs. And man, I love this guy. And he came to my house one night, knocks on the door and said, cuz, let me in. So I let him in. And he's like, man, they're after me. And so I let him in, I closed it, I locked the door, and he's looking out the window, then he's looking under the door. And I was like, man, how many of them are there? Because now it's two of us, but how many people chasing you? I didn't know that he was on drugs that moment. So we spent about 30 minutes looking. I was like, man, I don't see a person over here, right? And I didn't know that paranoia comes with crack addiction. So after 30 minutes of doing this, and I'm like, I thought back on it and I said, when you needed diapers for your kid last week, when your car broke down and you needed gas money, when you came back and said, man, do I have a 20? You'll bring it right back and didn't. You see, I've been investing into a bad habit in a bad situation, and it didn't come to light until I saw him looking for something that didn't exist. And when I looked, I saw that there's nothing there. And so what happens is You have to look at it, and you're looking at what they're looking at, and if you see that there's nothing there, there's no future, there's no boogeyman, it's the man within. You step away and say, when you get it together, that same door you came in and were hiding behind will give you, you won't have to hide, you'll find it to be a protective door. I'll hold the door for you, but until you get it together. And that's why sometimes we have to cut off people when it comes to business, man. They're askaholics. You keep asking me stuff, but you don't do anything with what I give you. Until you're ready to put it into action, I've got to cut you off. And then there are some people that, yeah, they messed up before. They jumped prematurely, or they didn't listen, or you were their coach one week and they're like, man, Kelly's the best coach I've ever had. Next week, hey, I just signed up with John Smith. John is the best. He's telling me stuff I've never heard before. And then you're like, then they find out, wait, John Smith's coach is who? Kelly? Oh my God. What is it? Then they come back. I messed up, but it is, I can invest with someone who can be honest and say, like my cousin returned, he's like, I got myself together, cuz. And I could tell by looking at him that he was healthy again. Skin was cleared up. And he didn't ask me for money. He needed money, but he didn't ask me for money. But the money he would need this time was so that he could better himself. I had to give him enough time to get to the end of himself so he can come back and remind himself that the relationship with me was worth more.
So, James, one of the things that I hear constantly when I'm with you, and even in our first episode, at 45 years old, you put the shorts on. I'm going to use that as a metaphor. You put the shorts on for the first time. And for those of you who didn't watch it, go back and watch it. But he put shorts on for the first time, exposing his prosthetic leg, which he was hiding for so long. And I hear it and I've heard it. And it would, a lot of times as a young kid, it would make me mad. People would be like, just be yourself, expose who you are and everything will flow. And at times I was like, no, but I'm broke right now. So I need to be somebody else right now because the rent is due. You know what I'm saying? The rent is, my car payments due. I got debt. You just don't understand. I ain't trying to be me right now because I'm broke. I'm trying to act like something else. And every time that happens, it creates the cycle. Can you talk about what it means to truly put on the shorts?
For me, putting on the shorts was to address a fear and an insecurity all at the same time. My fear wasn't wearing the shorts. They were just cloth. It was just fabric. But I wanted to be cut of another cloth. I wanted to believe that I really was more than just someone who wore an S on his chest, that I could be a symbol of hope. And the only way I could do that is to acknowledge the fact that I had body dysmorphia, that I felt insecurities, that I felt inadequate. I felt I'd be rejected. But when I put on the shorts, what I found is that there was a network of people who was waiting to support me. People that didn't have to lose their legs to be able to support me, but they wore shorts with me. One of the most tiniest little diminutive guys was like, if anybody makes fun of you, big fella, I got you. And I was like, he was being willing to go to the mat for me, and I realized that putting on the shorts is the first step of bravery. But then when you own it, that's a whole different thing, because you can fake bravery. You can have it in certain segments. You can lose at the moment. You've seen women walk into it. They put on a dress and they see someone with a better shape and the same thing. Now they don't want to be in it. No, all you got to do is own your space, right? Stop living in a comparative world. The moment you realize that these shorts are made for me, and wait a minute, and I was made for them. I am walking in this. This is who I am, what I am, and I'm cut of a different cloth. What I have around me doesn't define me. Is what I let out of me.
What about an actionable item to start where a person is maybe insecure about a specific thing? Where can they start just to start to own it, to be able to grab a hold of it and not be afraid of it anymore?
Let's say one of the biggest fears people have is public speaking, right? Getting in front of people and talking. And so then you if you want to begin that way, and you're saying, you start recording yourself and get over that insecurity about how you might sound. You start recording yourself and you start making videos of affirmations that to yourself, and then you will find that, wow, that's not bad. You work on it, you develop it, you build it in private so that you can bring it out in public. It is stational, it is step by step. And it's like, well, I don't look right. I don't know if I look right saying it. So what you do is you put images on the screen and you just begin to talk and put your voice to the images until you get to the point that you are comfortable enough to introduce the world to who you are. And so there are stages to it. An actionable item is that you begin with the first small step. Get used to doing it. Get to the point where you can practice and speak to yourself in the mirror. No one else is watching. Sometimes the best songs I've ever heard in my life, best vocalist, is when I'm in the shower. I've heard this dude. Man, I hit every note. Sometimes, but now if I were to be recorded, it wouldn't sound like that. But see, that's when I would go back and I analyze it based on some other standard. But what I felt in that moment was pure. Now, anything I work at, I can get better at. Anything I put investment in can give me a return. It starts with those small steps. Build on who you are with what you have, and then you continue to stretch yourself. Don't get comfortable. Don't get lax, but keep building. And eventually, what you did in private will come out in public, and they'll see your name in lights.
So, James, for me, a lot of times when you see a person like yourself, who is one of the top motivational speakers in the world, and you showed me a graphic of Tony Robbins,
That's
the goat in our space, right? So Tony Robbins, and then you got Eric Thomas, hip hop preacher.
That's right.
Shout out to him too. And then you got absolute motivation. And it was amazing because you said in a couple of different categories, absolute motivation was above both.
Both.
And people look at it and they're like, oh, wow, you motivate people, you lift people up. But a lot of times people don't talk about the dark side of the people who chase the light. And they think that James is going to be up all the time. And I want to give you an example. It was just last week. I had a really tough, probably couple of days where I was questioning everything about my whole entire being. And it was this dark place of well, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? Why'd you leave this? What is going on? You're not on the right track, blah, blah, blah. And it was just boom, 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 boom. And I had to sit in it for a little bit. I had to sit in it. And it was real, though. And a lot of people don't share that part.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of times people will turn off to motivation or inspiration because they're like, you don't seem to be going through any of the stuff that I go through. What are some of the darker places that you go through, or do you even have them anymore?
No. Listen, not only go through, when you come out of it, you walk right back into another. In the middle of going through the tunnels, in the middle of going through the dark moments, it is true for us all. I step up into in Atlanta when I got up to speak, and I know the anticipation. These people are waiting to hear me, and people have heard this. Sometimes your reputation can make you a prisoner because you have to be able to beat them. So I know that the last time these people heard me speak, they were like, you were on fire. But I was on fire because of some of the things that were happening around me. I was able to tap in those emotions and shed them there. And so they felt this thing. But this is different because walking into the room when I was out there in the hallway, those who hadn't heard me were just walking past like I was the janitor, right? They're like, yeah. And I'm like, hey, hi. Yes, okay. All right. And then, so I walk in there. And they're like, the person who was supposed to introduce me, who would set the tone of who you are and all that, wasn't there. So they picked another guy who I met one time. He goes, okay, listen, they asked me to do this. James gonna come up. I think James from Indiana. James gonna come up. He'll tell you about himself. I was like, that is the worst intro. What am I supposed to do with that? Just come up, and it would sound horrible if you say, I'm this, I'm that, I've done this. And so I began with that, and I was like, man, I got to build this thing up as a goal. I have to address this house with numbers. So let me go ahead and begin it this way. And I was like, instead of me telling me who you are, let me show who I am. And I started talking about the audience, and I started speaking to them. And I was telling them how Sometimes people think that when I'm put together a message or something that this thing just flows. No, there are times where I'm standing in front of a microphone trying to record, and I'm like, and then I'll get 3 minutes in and lose. Then I'm like, that light bulb, I didn't. Man, I messed it up. Let me record, start again, and then I didn't say it right. Now I didn't have the same passion. Now I'm second guessing. Now I have to come back tomorrow. I've wasted it. You see, everybody goes through ups, downs, but here's the consistent thing, that there's a chord in me that no matter what refuses to quit. There's a chord in me that says, even though I'm messing up right now, even though it's dark. In fact, Kelly, forgive me for this, but I'm going to just tell you, what got me known or discovered was the fact that I was walking into the gym and I was thinking about someone saying about all the mistakes and the bad things I'd done. And they had said this verse to me. They said, what you do in the dark is going to come to light. And they said it in such a way like God is about to expose you. And when they said this thing, man, it hit me because you know your shortcomings. Even now, when I say that what you do in the dark will come to the light, you think about what happened, that what could possibly be said, what could possibly be done, whatever, right? And then, but I got to thinking, and was like, man, I believe God works more than just in that way. There's always another side to the coin. What you do in the dark will come to the light, not just your mistakes. That's not what he's talking about, because God's not looking to expose and destroy you. The devil is his only enemy. But when it comes to you, it is at midnight when it's still dark. It's a brand new day. Midnight signifies that it's a new start for you, even when it's dark. When you've messed up in the middle of the trial, when you're down, when you're disgusted with yourself, when you're angry, when you're confused, when you're disappointed, when I'm discouraged, when I'm depressed, it's a new day, even though it's dark, meaning that it's a brand new start for me. All I have to do is allow him to keep working in me in the dark, keep working on myself, keep believing that somehow this has got to give way to light. And when you do that, when the lights come on, the work you did in the dark will make your name known.
Tell me the difference between motivation and inspiration.
Well, motivation is a thing that comes in from within. It's my why. My motivation is that I want my children to be able to look at me and honor me. I want them to see pride. I want them to have, like, that's my daddy, right? Motivation is I want to walk in the doors and have those that say they love you, whether it's your wife, whether it's your husband. You want somebody to be able to say, I'm proud of you. That's motivation. Inspiration is external. You see, I can see a painting and be inspired by it. I can hear a message and be like, man, I'm inspired to do something. But motivation, that must come from you. It's the M that's me. The inspiration is that I see it. It comes into me, but motivation comes out of me.
So you're the master at overcoming, and you speak about this. You share your message. I mean, even in the new book, in your new book, Found, Living a Life Without Limitations, you overcome, whether it be that you grew up in a neighborhood that probably wasn't the Beverly Hills. You didn't have the perfect circumstances for people. Mm-hmm. What do you wish you could unlearn about overcoming?
Well, I'm not into this product placement and propping up and talking about my stuff, man. I'm just saying, well, for me, man, this is just about, when you talk about overcoming some stuff, I want to tell you about, I may have come from some rough stuff, but I had enough play clothes and school clothes. You see, there were other people that had it worse off than me. The fact that I even had that type of wardrobe. Now, there might have been some floods to play in or something like that, but I had that. And so when I look back over my life and I've overcome some things, there are some things I'm still overcoming though, right? And there are some things like today. I come from a city where people were harsh on me, cold to me, mistreated me, disrespectful, all those different things that I experienced. But in the same city where I felt some pain, today the mayor made a proclamation. The same city. In fact, I'm doing this in the mayor's conference room. The mayor stepped out to give me his conference room so I could talk with you. You see, you can overcome, but when you overcome, it's not to go back and be like, I told y'all I'd make it. I told y'all I would never. You were haters, and now it's never that. Man, sometimes you're the Joseph of it, and they're still your family, no matter what. You overcome so that you can pull them out. You overcome so you can show them. You overcome, and maybe they never do get on your bandwagon. Maybe they never do celebrate, but it was never about them. It was about you and God. It was about your path, your journey. They were just there to provoke you so that you would change. If I didn't grow up poor, man, I would never have understood the value of a good hotel. I would never know the value of it. I would have gotten callous to things. If I had been given things, I wouldn't have had the same motor, the same engine. But then I find every one of us has something to overcome. You can be wealthy but lack the attention and affection of a father, and trying to win his approval your whole life, trying to get him to validate you, tell you that he loves you, that he's proud of you. Everybody has something to overcome. But I do believe this: you become something when you overcome something.
James, what do you experience? I had this question with my best friend Will, who you'll meet at some point, and I talk about him all the time. He's my best friend in the world. We grew up together in each other's houses. His mom raised me. My mom raised him. My parents, I think, gave permission to the other one to whoop us if they needed to.
Oh, yeah.
But I remember being 15, I think I was 15 years old, and I looked around the house, and his mom was not there at the time. So it was his dad, his two sisters, and Will and myself. And I looked around, and I was like, for the first time, I realized I was the only white person in the house. And because Will grew up in a mixed family. So, mom was white, dad was black, and I looked around and I was like, and I remember registering it. And then I was like, oh, cool. And then I just went back to whatever. And it was years later that we had a conversation, and it kind of sparked and I asked him this question I want to ask you. What do you go through as a black man in America that I will never understand?
Ash. Yeah.
No, I had ash yesterday. I had ash on my ankle yesterday. But true ash. Okay, so tell me about ash. Tell me, is it it's elbows?
It's elbows. It's the web in your hands. It's that stuff. It just look. I got a little bit here, so you end up having to do stuff like, man. I got to tell you, there's one thing I got to change, man. I'm different, man. I used to be caught up in this thing, man, where people were like, as a black man, I never Plymouth Rock. But now as I've grown, I've realized that this thing is really about who you are and your character. It's about my relationships. It's about the things I have in common with people that have common goals. I don't even think about race when I'm communicating with people, right? But I have found that when I was ever focused on color, it begins weird. And if it doesn't seem weird to you and everybody's like, no, you got to have it, then let me put it this way. I joined a support group for amputees. I step into the room and the guys are like, hey, here are the rules. No two-leggers allowed. And they were using two-leggers like a curse word. Like, yeah, they were like, no two-leggers. If we catch a two-legger in this room, you will be banned. And anyone that allows a two-legger. And so they would get
a two-legger. I've never heard a two-legger. I believe that's the first time on that it's broadcasted out there. This is the first time publicly that a two-legger.
Yeah, I'm probably gonna be banned from that group now that I talked to one. So, but then there was a different class in there. The below the knees, we're talking, and then above the knees come in, and we start playing who suffered more. And the above the knees, like, you got a paper cut. Try having no thigh. And you're like, oh, okay. But when did you lose yours? And then And then they realize, like, man, you can get down the rabbit trail of everybody just being negative and playing this game of victimization, or we can be like, listen, we cannot change the fact that we lost legs, but we can change on how we respond to that loss. We can build something, we can become something, or we can sit back and we can collect disability. We can argue about, if it wasn't for this person, that person, a wheelchair, if it wasn't for this process, we can get on all these things and break those down and talk about ableism. And they were like, listen, we need to ban The Rock. And I was like, hold up. That's my boy. What do you mean? They're like, we need to ban The Rock. We need to start a petition because he appropriated our culture. And I was like, what? They said when he played that movie as an amputee called Skyscraper, he appropriated our culture. And so there was going to be a follow. Yeah. There was going to be a follow-up movie until they started going at him. And so he canceled doing the Skyscraper 2 because the amputee communities were like, the fact that he had nerve to pretend to be one of us. And so they started this petition and all this stuff. And so could you imagine if they had just said, hey, listen, they're right. Take The Rock out, and we're going to introduce Sarah Johnson. She's a below-the-knee amputee. Does anyone know her? No, it doesn't matter. Sarah Johnson, Skyscraper. That wouldn't have been seen in her backyard. The budget would have been $12. It looked like the Blair Witch Project. Now you understand how silly we can get when we break down segments. When we get all racial, we get all this stuff, and we can make anyone an enemy. But it takes effort to make someone your friend.
James, one of my biggest fears is thinking that my stuff right now is so cool and then looking at it in 5 years or 10 years and being like, what was I doing? Man. Can you talk about a time in your life that when you wore it or when you were doing it, you were like, this is it. And then you look back at it now, and I'll give you an example. I used to visit my Uncle Lou here in San Diego. And I used to wear Uncle Lou. And every year he used to buy a football, like a pro football, the Duke. I don't know if you ever seen the Duke, but it was like, it's the real NFL football. Every year, one time a year, he'd buy it. He was a Dan Fouts fan, San Diego Chargers. We would come down. We would play some lawn darts that shouldn't be illegal anymore. And we would be out in the front yard. I'd wear my favorite outfit. Some velour dolphin shorts and a crop top mesh jersey. And I'd just be rocking it. But I look back at it now and I'm like, I don't know if this belly would be okay in that crop top. Mm-hmm. Talk to me about some of the things you either wore or that you did that you thought, this is it.
All right. So I'm going to do this one, and I got to take off with this one. You're going to love it, though, because I've always had rhythm. I've been the smoothest brother of all time. In fact, I felt like I won that award. I had a friend named Spain. He was like, dude, you got that hammer dance down pat. And I was like, for real? Because, man, I wanted to do that hammer dance so bad. And I'm not talking about the one with do-do-do-do. I'm talking about where he was sliding his leg back and forth. And my buddy convinced me that I had this thing down pat. And so we get into the lunchroom, and he goes, hit him with the hammer, man. And I was like, for real? And since I practiced it, and he was hyping me up, he was like, man, Doc, you got it. So I was like, hey, y'all. Oh. And they started laughing, and I'm like, and I realized he set me up. You see, sometimes you can feel like you got something down, and you look back over your life and realize they got me, And sometimes some of them old outfits, brother, I love you. I love who you are. I love what you do and the way you've impacted my life. I thank you for that. I'm headed off. We're shooting a film. I'm going to the Olympic Training Center, and we're going to be setting up there and doing some great stuff. But I got to go. I don't even want to go, but I got to go. I appreciate it.
Well, James, I want to thank you so much. I want to thank every single person out there. Check out the sponsors. Do what you know you need to do. Check out the book. Check out the book. Found. Here it is, product placement. Put it up there.
I'm not even that guy. I'm not going to do it.
He's not even going to product place. Living a
I'm
life
not-
without limitations.
not.
Superman is real. Superman for real. Mr. James Dixon, you're officially off the hot seat.